So we say, determine your hourly rate. This is something I talked about a little while ago. Divide your annual income by 2,000 to calculate your hourly rate. So take, for example, your annual income. I'm sure you've paid your taxes by now, so you know how much you wrote down in that awful line, that awful box. And that's how much you earned last year, at least as far as the IRS knows. And most of us don't want to get in trouble with the IRS. I sure don't. I don't like those people. They're awful human beings. Awful. It's like something out of the Gargoyles. Anyway, so calculate your annual income. Last year I earned this amount, and then divide that by 2,000. Because entrepreneurs, self-owned business owners like yourself, people who are independent and individual work about 2,000 hours a year. And so you divide your income by 2,000, that gets you your hourly rate. All right, so let's say you earned $100,000 last year, you divide it by 2,000, you earn $50 an hour. From this day forward, never do anything that you would not pay someone else $50 an hour to do. Don't do it. If someone says, can you do this, can you do that? Nope, wouldn't touch it. Don't touch it, don't touch it. As if it's got some kind of terrible toxic waste on it. Don't touch the job. Why? Because you don't do those things, because they pay too little. Hire someone else, put it off, delay it, and so on. And as your income goes up, keep raising the bar on yourself. And then what you do, divide your annual income to get the rate, and the next thing you do is you delegate everything that anyone else can do at a lower hourly rate than you earn. And free up every minute possible for doing just those things that only you can do. Remember, every minute that you can free up is an opportunity for you to earn more money, make a more valuable contribution, be happier in your business and in your work and so on. So always delegate anything that someone else can do. Key productivity principle is this: do what you do best and delegate or discontinue the rest. So only 3 things that you do best, get rid of everything else. And you have to be disciplined. You have to be disciplined. You cannot cut yourself some slack and so on. So what do you do best? Which brings us back to that great question, what are the 3 most important things that you do where you do them really, really well? Because this is where you're going to earn a lot of money and be really successful. And the best of all is when you do what you do best and you do it well, you're happy all the time. You feel really great about yourself. And everybody likes and respects you more. Nobody likes and respects mediocre people who should have been fired a long time ago. They like and respect people who do their job really well. And so you should always be saying, what do I really enjoy and do really well that pays well? The things that pay the most. And then you say, now who would I have to delegate so I can get rid of these tasks? And it's quite astonishing how fast you will find somebody to do the task. Quite astonishing. I remember when we had our first child, Christina, we would go for a walk around the block, about 1 or 2 miles every day. And Christina, my first-time mother, didn't want to have a babysitter. And so Christina's 2 years old, she's in a cart, said, well, we can't get a babysitter, she's too young, she can't leave her alone, blah, blah, blah. This must be very standard in the parenting industry. And she said, besides, we could never find anybody, there isn't anybody, you couldn't trust somebody, blah, 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 blah. I said, there's lots of babysitters around. No, you couldn't find it. And we're walking along, and there are 3 teenage girls, about 16-year-olds, high school girls, sort of talking and chatting on the front stoop of this house. And I went up to them, I said, anyone of you babysits? And one of the girls, I think her name was Janine, I still remember this, she said, I do. I said, good. We live down the street at that house. Can you be here at 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. tonight for 2 hours? She said, absolutely. How much do you charge? $5 an hour. Good, there we go. And I said, you see, Barbara, we now got a babysitter. Nice looking, intelligent, lives down the street, trustworthy, nice clean friends and so on. She's going, and we never had a problem with that again. So there's lots of people who can do these things for you. Don't ever come up, so I can't find anybody, whack, find somebody. Okay, what are great people in a business? This is the format that you look for to hire people. Number 1, they're excellent at their work. They really do their work well. What do I got here? When is our next break, by the way? Does anybody know? 4:30. Okay, good. So great people in a business, they're excellent at their work. They really do their work well. and they're committed to becoming better. Number two, they accept a high level of responsibility. One of the marks of superior people is they accept responsibility and they don't make excuses and they don't blame other people. Number three is they have a positive mental attitude. I remember a very famous hotel owner. She said, in her advertisement, she said, we don't hire people and teach them to be nice. We just hire nice people. I still remember that. Being in advertising, I still remember that. We just hire nice people. And you do the same thing. You just hire nice people. You only hire people that you like and that everybody else likes. And then you'll probably never make another mistake. But you want good people. Especially, you look at companies like Hewlett-Packard and others. They started off in a garage. And just like Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak started off in a garage. And they built businesses that eventually had tens of thousands of people. And why? It's because from the very beginning, they hired good people. They hired people that they liked and that they got along with. They have a positive mental attitude. Number four, they use their time well. They don't waste time. Nothing more frustrating if you are a wage payer, if you're a boss, and you're paying money, and people are wasting their time. And so therefore, you need to encourage them to use their time well. You can allow them to read my book, Eat That Frog. Encourage them. What many companies do, by the way, is now they're doing it, and we've now actually put it online, is they do one chapter a week. And they have a session from 8:30 to 9, or they have a session on Tuesday morning, and they just talk about how each person could use their time better and how each other person could help other people use their time better. Now, what is the greatest time waster in the world of work? What is the greatest time waster?
Facebook.
No, it's other people. Other people are the greatest time waster of all. It's a very subtle form of waste, is they just chat with you. And they say, well, let's go for, I know it's 10 minutes to 12, but, if we go now, we'll get a good table. And then it's 10 minutes after 1, and they're saying, well, it's 10 minutes after 1, but nobody's back at their office yet. And so what they do, and then they chat with you during the day, chat. And then they ask you to do little things and so on, and they consume an enormous amount of your time. So just be alert to that. It's the biggest time waster in the world of work is other people who don't value your time. Here's another thing that I learned, is that nobody values your time. Your time is of no value to other people. It is worth nothing. Zero, zip, nada, nicht, niet, rien. It's not worth anything. So if you don't make it valuable to you by guarding it carefully, by saying, look, I simply do not have the time, I can't do it, I am overwhelmed, I have things I have to complete, whatever it is, the answer is no. You're too busy to do this stuff. And so what they'll do is they'll go and find somebody else and waste their time. And if you keep saying no, they'll stop bothering you. It's sort of like calling a girl for a date and getting told no all the time. You just eventually stop calling. So if you just say no, just like Warren Buffett, eventually people will stop bothering you and you'll be able to use your time at a high level of effectiveness. Very important thought. And don't you be the person, one of the questions we used to ask is who wastes your time at work and whose time do you waste? That's like sticking a knife in and twisting it a little bit. Me? I never waste anybody's time. Oh, really? Let's just run the camera back. This is the secret camera. And let's just see how much of other people's time you've been wasting during the day. They use their time well, and they get along well with others. One of the most attractive parts of a workplace is people enjoy working there because they enjoy their coworkers. They really get along well. They're really positive. One of the things that I do is I tell people, if you're not happy here, you ask me, and I will do everything possible to make you happy, but if I can't, you have to leave. There's going to be no complaining, and there's going to be no bitching, and there's going to be no griping, and there's going to be no gossiping, or no rumors, or anything else. Everybody's going to speak openly and freely to everybody, and if we can't do that, then it's better that you go somewhere else. And what I had to do when I initiated this policy, because it got out of control, what I had to do is fire a couple of people. And then it all stopped. And if people were having problems, we would say, it doesn't look like you're happy here. Whoop. And they would know that they would be drop kicked out the door. Or they would quit. So if you go in, how can you tell? This is a side thing. How can you tell if you have a great team of people working for you? What's the test? It's like pulse or something else. And the answer is laughter. How can you tell if you have a great relationship between two people? Is they laugh together a lot. When they see each other, they smile. When they meet each other, they laugh. When they talk to each other on the phone, they laugh. How can you tell if you have a great home? Your kids laugh all the time. How can you tell if you have a great office? Everybody laughs. And one of the happiest things I hear is people say, you know, there's something about your office, and they've been saying this for decades, something about your office. Everybody's always laughing. They joke with each other. And they turn their phones off and their email, they turn them off for 2-3 hour blocks each day. They turn them off from 9 to noon. They turn them off from 1:30 to 4:30. And they do it voluntarily. They say, we can't leave these on because they're too distracting. So nobody fools around with their electronic devices. And these are telemarketers and online marketers. So that's all they do is do marketing, but they do not check email, and they do not check social media, and they don't check anything because it's just too time consuming. It can just almost like a vacuum cleaner, just suck you up. So what else about great people? Hiring the right people. And this is important because this is one of the most important skills of all. I could spend, half a day teaching almost any one of these skills. Delegating, by the way, is one of the most important skills in the world of work. If you can't do it, or you can't do it right, it's going to cost you enormous problems. So hiring the right people, we say your ability to find and hire the right people is the key to leveraging and multiplying yourself. It's the key to getting maximum productivity. And when I started my first business, I thought hiring was finding somebody and just hiring them. Hi, how are you? This is what we're doing here. What do you think? Okay, when do you want to start? That's how we used to hire. It was pretty basic. And then I found that every successful company is very careful about hiring. I began to read it and say, I wrote a book on it, Hiring and Firing, which is published by the American Management Association. And because I found that the big companies I was working with were very, very thoughtful and took an enormous amount of time to hire people. I mean, one company I worked with in New York, they did 25 interviews to hire a receptionist. 25 interviews. And they would interview anywhere from 10 to 20 people just to hire a receptionist. And so I talked to them about this, and they say, you have no idea how difficult it is to hire people who fail, who don't work out, and the problems they cause with the other staff and things that they say to you afterwards and so on. So even the president of the company interviews the receptionist to make sure that they've got the right person. Now that for me is a bit strict. But just always remember, you hire slowly. Be very careful, because this is an important... Ken Blanchard, my friend who wrote The 1 Minute Manager, he calls his receptionist the front office manager. And she's got business cards as the front office manager. She is the first point of contact when somebody calls the company, the front office manager. So she's not a receptionist. She's a very important person. And she sits in on all the meetings because she's a very important person in the company. She's the first line of fire. And you think about that, you say, well, geez, that's very true. If they call up and they get a negative person talking, that can be very painful. So, we say here, is how to hire. Selection is 95% of success in hiring people. Selection is 95%. If you get this wrong, there's only 5% of the hiring process that you can have any influence over. You get the wrong person in there, then there's nothing you can do. So what we say is go slowly. It's just like a good doctor, a good accountant. They study in great detail at the beginning before they make a decision, because of the big C word. What's the big C word? Come on. Consequences. Consequences. Geez, are you listening? But consequences means the consequences of a mishire can be really severe. Can be really severe. The consequences of a quick hire can be severe and very painful and costly. So always remember, what is the consequences of hiring the wrong person in a key job? Holy smokes. They can be very costly in terms of time and money and everything else. So 2 is never hire as a solution to a problem. Where you're overwhelmed with work or you haven't been able to get it done, let's hire somebody. I used to do that when I was a young guy. We need to hire someone. We need to hire someone for this or hire someone for that. The hole was a problem, and you're hiring someone to stuff the hole. And so I used to joke and say that the comparison is having a fire and grabbing a bucket to throw the bucket onto the fire quickly, and only to find that the bucket is full of full of gasoline. So you don't just hire somebody and throw them on the problem. You go slowly. Even if there's other problems, you go slowly. Number 3, poor hiring is very expensive. It costs 3 to 6 times the annual income of the person that you hire to hire the wrong person and have to get rid of them. And some people say, in complete detail, that it takes 10 times the annual income cost. First of all, you have to hire them. And if you do it yourself, it's the amount of time that you've had to spend. If you do it through an agency, the amount of time and money they've had to invest. Then you have to train them. Then you have to spend time from your busy day, which is really important, which takes you away from other work that needs to be done that's of higher value. Then you need to reprimand them. Then you need to train them. Sometimes training takes a lot of time and money. And at the end of this whole time, if you hire the wrong person, you have to let them go. Now you go into the second phase of cost, which is demoralization. Remember, people are highly emotional. If they see people being fired around them, they think, oh my God, am I next? And then there's all kinds of rumors and stories about why the person was fired, and are they going to be fired next, and is the company shutting down, and what's really going on here, and do we know, and so on. And so the best of all is to go very slowly at the beginning. You'll find there's a direct relationship between profitability in companies like yours and mine and the lowness of turnover. Wherever you have very low turnover, the companies are far more profitable. And what I found was that all of these costs are almost invisible costs. You're losing an enormous amount of money if you have to hire and fire people, and it's invisible. You can't see it. But if you don't have turnover, then your company's far more profitable. You hire people, and they're there with you for a long time. So we say, think through the job. Going back to our first question at the beginning, think. And what do we think with? Ta-da! Think on paper. I'm going to tell you something that is absolutely amazing. Is a piece of paper and a pad is absolutely miraculous in business. So what you do is you say, okay, what are the results that are expected from this person? What results, and what do we know about results? Is they're measurable, they're clear, and they have a schedule on them. So you write these down. The results that I'm hiring you to get are this, and this is when they're necessary, and this is how the standard will be measured. This really forces you, by the way, in terms of times of rapid change today, it really forces you to think through the job at a much greater depth, because things are changing. And so now the next person you hire will always have different requirements than the person that you just let go or just let go of you. So what you do is you think it through. Now we need a new person, but we don't need exactly the person that we're replacing. Maybe we need a brand new person. And so you think it through and you discuss it as though it's a family deal, and you're discussing a member of the family marrying someone. And B is the skills required. What skills will a person have to have in order to achieve those results? And don't cut any slack here. Don't hire people who can't do the job just because you're busy or you think that they can learn quickly. And C is personality attributes necessary. The 80-20 rule, by the way, applies to this. They found that 80% of the reason that people are fired is because of their personality. They don't get along. They're difficult. They're sometimes dishonest in a lot of things. And so the major reason that people are let go is they just don't get along with their coworkers. So it's really important. You ask them what results they have gotten in the past and what skills they have. You are looking for what is called demonstrable competence, or proof that these people have already done the job well that you're thinking of hiring them for. You do not hire people to do important jobs, as I said before, brand new off the street. You hire people who already have a demonstrated track record. Now, how do you hire? Write out the job description. Idealize. Imagine that there is a factory where they will send you the perfect person, but you have to send them a handwritten description of the perfect person. So what I did, and I did this once a few years ago, I've done it many times, but I remember I took a pad of paper like this. I still remember. I took a pad of paper like this, and I sat down and I said, if I hired the perfect person, what would this perfect person look like? And I wrote down, I wrote down something like 32 qualities, skills, characteristics, behaviors, where they live. They live close to the office, be a non-smoker, have experience, proven experience in this industry, nice personality, hard worker. I just wrote down everything that the perfect person would have. And then I put it away. 2 weeks later, I got a phone call. His name was Carl. I still remember. He said, I have never met you before, but I've heard about you. And I work in the teaching, training industry, and I just had an instinct that there might be a job for me with your company. And could I come in and talk to you? Well, that's a pretty good approach, you know, because we're largely intuitive as entrepreneurs. So I brought him in. I said, well, I can talk to you for about 20 or 30 minutes because I'm very busy. He came in, we spent 3 hours. And I violated every single principle in the West, and I hired him. And he came to work for me, and he was perfect. And about a month after he'd come to work, doing a wonderful job, I pulled out this list. I said, I want to show you this list, which I put together before I interviewed you the first time. And he had not only all 32 descriptors, but he had 4 more besides. He knew how to do computer programming and to do marketing plans online. He knew how to do stuff that we really needed done, but we had nobody who could do it a few years ago. And it was just a great experience. And I remember it was started by me sitting down and writing. So I did this every time I hire somebody, is I write out a list, and a complete list. That's what I like to do. And then I circulate the list. Show it to everybody in your company. How many people does the average person know by their first name? Do you know? The answer is about 300. It's called a center of influence, like a spider's web, where the person is like the spider, and they know 300 people. Every one of those people knows 300 people. If they're married, their spouse knows 300 people as well. So what if 10% of those people is a likely candidate? It's 1 out of 10. How many would that be per staff member? And the answer is 30. They know from school and relationships and church and everything else, and their spouse would know also another 30. So the first thing we do is we sit down and we have a scrum where we talk about, here's a description of the perfect person we're looking for. So if you know somebody who fits this description, help set us up a meeting. Now, what many companies do this, and what they do is they say, I don't want to make a mistake by sending over a bad person to my company. So they're going to be very careful. They're going to screen them better than a screening company would do it. And so we do that all the time. And virtually all of our staff come from our staff. There's another company that I read about. Remember, I wrote a book on this subject, so I read about 20, 30, 40 books, so I have enough information. And what they did is they would offer $500 if you found a good prospect, someone that they wanted to follow up with. Then, 6 months later, if they hired the person, they'd give you another $500, and 6 months later, they'd give you another $500. So they paid out $1,500 for someone who came, was accepted, was hired, and stayed. And so everybody in the company was on the company payroll, and they wanted to get good people because they'd be coworkers. They'd be working with these people every day. So it sounds like a small thing. You say, well, 500? Actually, it was 500 if they hired them, 500 after 6 months, 500 after 12 months. And you say, well, that's a lot of money. Are you kidding? Sit down with a pen and paper and calculate how much it would cost you in dollars, in times, in hours to hire the right person. It's really cheap. It's really cheap. And so here we say, write out the description, idealize. Imagine that you can get the perfect person, all right? Now, it doesn't mean you get the perfect person, but if you aim for the stars, you hit the moon. You know, you miss the stars, you hit the moon. You've all heard that. Number 6, cast a wide net. Tell others. Tell everybody that you're looking for this kind of a person. And be open. Ask them questions. And then, interviewing process. The interviewing process is look for achievement history. Look for somebody who's already done this job before and done it well. Okay, that's the first thing you're looking for. That predicts about 80% of the potential success of the new candidate. And so when you get an application, I've had people apply for jobs, put on the ads now in the internet and Craigslist and other places, and they call up, and these people have no experience in that area at all. I said, why on earth did you phone? They said, well, I thought I'd see if I could get past it. You know, you didn't know how closely you would be reading the interviews, reading the resume. You want to take them into the back room and beat them up. B, look for a sense of urgency. Now, this is what I found. By the way, all of this stuff is validated by great research. Look for a person who really wants to work there, and they want to work there now. So you can ask a question, if we were to make this job available to you, how soon would you be prepared to start? That doesn't mean that you're going to hire them. You're not giving them false hope. And they would say, right away. I want to start right away. I really want to work here. I mean, I have a 2-week commitment to my current employer. But as soon as that 2 weeks is up, the last woman I hired to be my personal assistant, her name was Kathy, I think. Jeez, it'll come to me. My mind's... Anyway, I was going through this interview process with her, and she said, I want to start immediately. And she said, I'll start working in the evenings. If you hire me, I'll work in the evenings and on weekends for free while I'm learning the job. And as soon as I'm let free by my current employer, then I'll come to work. She's willing to work free for 2 weeks just to learn the job. And so I offered her the job, and she came to work for us and was with us for 4 years until she got married and had children and was busy at home. But that was a great sign. Teaching what I preach is hire people who have a sense of urgency, who want to hire immediately. If you ever hire somebody who says, well, I want to take a vacation before you start work, that's going to be the beginning of their vacation, and they're going to stay on it when they come to work. Number C is intelligent questions. They say 72% of the quality and intelligence of a person can be determined by the questions they ask. If you have somebody who sits there passively while you're asking them questions and trying to pry information out of them, not a good candidate. You want to hire people who want to start immediately, and they ask a lot of questions. They ask about you, and they ask about the company, and they ask about the future, and they ask about the industry, and I mean, there's something about them that is attractive and appealing. And the rule of 3, and then I'll let you go, we'll take a break. The rule of 3 is something that I developed many years ago. I teach it now I was speaking to a large room of about 800 company owners, average company about $5 to $10 million. And one of the people in the room, who's a friend of mine, stood up, and he's not shy. He stood up and he said, listen to this, listen to what he's about to tell you. He said, we have used that technique now for more than 10 years, since I first learned it from Brian a few years ago. It's one of the best ideas we've ever heard in business. It has helped us so much. You listen to him when he's talking. And here it is. The rule of 3 says, interview at least 3 people for the job. And after you've interviewed 3 people, interview at least 3 times the person that you like. Now, some companies, as I told you, will do it 10, 20 people. But interview at least 3 times, and then interview at least 3 places. So you interview a person on Monday, and you really like them. But hold yourself back. Hold back, like Braveheart. Hold yourself back. And then you meet them again on Monday or Wednesday, meet them again on Friday. And then you interview them 3 times. And then 3 places, you interview them in your office, you interview them down the hall, you interview them across the street. One of the most wonderful things, I learned this from the big companies, is take someone out for lunch. And just have lunch. Talk about the job generally. Holy smokes. A person who looked fabulous back at the office is somebody you wouldn't want to be seen with by the time you've had lunch with them. They're just completely inappropriate. And the reason is what is called the chameleon effect. It's my contribution. Is that people actually change their personality and behavior when you move them to different places with different colors. So by moving people around, this is why we go out on dates with people, why we go out several times with people that we're interested in, is because they actually change their personality and temperament and a whole lot of things when you move them around. And number 4 is have 3 other people interview the candidate. Now this is the 4th, I learned this, it used to be 3 and 3, but now 3 and 4, because what I do is I interview the person, that's what I did in the old days, and then I would take them in to interview with someone else. And they would chat for half an hour, and there's no pressure. There's not talking about being hired or anything else. They just ask questions about the company and so on. And then my second person would say, well, let me introduce you to someone else that you should talk to, ask some questions. So we take her down to the 3rd person, 4th person. Today, my office will sometimes interview a person by 6 or 7 or 8 people. Everybody interviews. Everybody wants to be in on the interview because they want to be sure that the person they're bringing on board the team is someone that everybody likes. So then I remember interviewing this guy, and I thought he was fantastic. He was from Houston, as a matter of fact. I still remember. And I wanted to hire him right away. And so he came in for the day, interviewed a lot of people. This is in San Diego. And then they all got together and said, I said, well, what do you think? No, the devil, no. This is a terrible person. In these triple interviews where you interviewed with someone else, I found people who were alcoholics, they were criminals, they were thieves, they were dope addicts. It was unbelievable. So always have them interviewed by at least 3 other people. And only then you sit down and you say, well, what do you think? And the way that Hewlett-Packard does it, they have them interviewed by a minimum of 4 people, and all 4 must be unanimous in hiring that person, or the person is canceled out of all consideration. So that person can never get back in if any one of the people doesn't like them. And it's amazing. Hewlett-Packard had one of the greatest longevity ratings. People would be there an average of 21 years. And they'd fight for the jobs, and they'd fight to do the jobs well. And you go through the Hewlett-Packard offices, which I did several times, and everybody's laughing. Everybody's laughing. One of the most productive companies in the world. So they interview 3 people, 3 times, 3 places, and interview 3 different candidates. Go slowly. So here's the final point we say here is check resumes and references personally. In 52% of resumes, they lie. They don't tell the truth. And so tell them, I'm going to check with each of the resumes and references that you've provided to me. Is there anything else you would like to tell me before I phone these people? And just remain perfectly silent. Silence is your best friend after a question. Just fine. Am I going to learn anything that I don't know now? And number 9, hire slow, fire fast. I've hired people, I've made every mistake, but I've hired people, and the next day I realized I made a mistake. The person was brilliant. There are some people out there, by the way, who have only one marketable skill, and it's getting hired at a new job. And they think about it, and they plan, and they rehearse, and they go through it with the members of their family, back and forth, and so on. And then you find out after a couple of days, there's something fundamentally wrong here. And you find out later, and this is what I found out, is that this person would come on, they would start, they work for a while, they would need an increase almost immediately, they would want an emergency raise. It was the most amazing damn thing, and you find that they did this every 3 to 6 months. Never had a long-term job. They just worked the market and all kinds of other things. So number 10, finally, is this, is start them off right and start them off strong. What we find is that when a person comes to work, you drown them in work. You put them to work, you have a list of stuff. I told you I worked for the big boss. I still remember this. The big boss, he called me in the afternoon. I just finished my final MBA program, my final MBA course, and I got home from the university, and he knew my schedule because I had interviewed with him in the past, and it was about 4 o'clock, and he said, well, what do you think about the job? He said, are you still interested? I said, yes, I am. He said, well, I'm interested in having you come and work for me. I said, well, that's great. That's wonderful. I still remember this conversation. And I said, great, well then I'll come in, see you Monday morning. He said, would that be okay? This is Friday, 4 o'clock. Would that be okay? He said, what about now? I said, now. I had just taken 2 solid years of MBA programs in the evenings and weekends and summers, and I just finished my final exam for the final program, and I was tired. And he said, what about now? I said, yes, could you come in now? I said, yes. He said, how long would it take? Well, I knew where his office was, of course. And so I could be there in 30 minutes. Okay, great, I'll be waiting for you. And I went in, and the office was almost empty. It was the end of the week. And I went in, and I sat down with him, and he had a list on his desk of 10 things he wanted me to start on right away. And he put me to work right away. And he showed me, this will be your office, bare office, chair and a desk. And I was at work right away, and I started off Monday morning, and I never got a break for almost 2 years. I still remember that, and I thought, isn't that smart? Because here's what they found. Coopers and Lybrand found that if you start a person off with a lot of work to do, they will naturally assume this is the way you work here, is you work hard. You work hard from the very minute, and you work hard, and you work long hours, and you get things done. They found out, they said that if you start a person off slow, they register that in this company you don't work very hard. You start slow, you work slow, go home early, and so on. And so what you do is when you hire a new person, you load them with work. Every day, load them with work. Because we have found this, people love to have so much work to do that they can bitch and complain about it. But the worst job you've ever had is when you were bored and you were sitting there and you were bored. You complain you have to work a lot, but you complain even more if you're bored. We love to be busy and active, and we love everybody else around us to be busy and active. So those are my ideas in terms of hiring and firing and hiring the right people. So what I'd like you to do, here we go. I'd like us to take a 15-minute break. I'm sorry, we did this 15 or 10 minutes?
We are actually Howard and I are going to do something real quick, and then we'll take a break and come back at 4:50.
4:50, okay.
So just give us a minute here. But let's give it up for Mr. Brian Tracy, please.